Welcome. We've got an interesting cast of characters tonight for us. Two you probably know, Rod and Neil. Jamie is an old mate who's joined us. I'm going to get them to do their own intros. If you guys can do your usual quick who you are, where you've been, spiel for us.
Oh, okay.
So can I start with you, Rod?
Okay. I'm Rod Smith. I head up Evolution Pictures, or a small, I want to say small me, production company doing appropriately budgeted movies. So anything from 250 up to 1.5. Previously, I was Anchor Bay Stars, and before that, I was Comedy A&R, and different things were in distribution and retail. And now I'm struggling producer.
Very good. Jamie?
I'm Jamie Chan. I'm a production manager. I'm freelance rather than attached to any particular production company, or not really a producer, but I work with producers, and I've worked on a variety of mostly features these days, although my next project is TV. Just finished Kid Who Would Be King, which is working title Joe Cornish. Done some stuff on Star Wars. Oh goodness, Maleficent. Some of the bigger budget things, basically.
Yep, quite big budget. Neil?
I'm Neil Thompson. I'm with Formosa Films. I've been around for about 10 years now, I think. So when we started off, we were doing kind of UK lower budget features, around about $1 million, between 1 and 2 mark. And since then, we've been concentrating on sort of development, mainly co-productions of the kind of $8-9 million and up, and I also have a sort of other sort of hobby interest, if you like, as a consultant, where I work on some films, getting them financed.
Cool, very good. Can I start with a very personal question, Jamie, of how's Mr. Scorsese to work for?
Incredible.
That's what we want to know.
In a word. He is one of the most intelligent, erudite, well-read, charming, witty, raconteurs, amazing filmmakers I've ever had the privilege of being in the same space. He is incredibly focused. Erudite and well-read doesn't even begin to describe how smart this man is. I worked with him in Taiwan, so obviously it's outside of his normal New York home, and we were helping to unpack his library, and yes, he travels with a library with Latin books. I mean, I did that at university. I don't study it anymore, and he travels with in the original language, which I can't even read now.
It's a Catholic thing. It's a Catholic thing.
Yeah, it is a Catholic thing, very much so. And it was silence, and it's about Jesuit priests, so I kind of get it. But he is an extremely an amazing kind of legend, and on set he's very focused. He has a small group of people around him, so like his inner circle, and there is absolute silence. He can't stand smoking on set, and it's very quiet, so to keep that focus, and sort of his small little area, his tent, just those relevant small circle of people kind of
there's a little
go
hierarchy,
in there.
is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why. So he will give instruction and direction from that tent and talk to the actors and that kind of thing, and then that will all disseminate down the line. It's quite unusual. Not everyone works in that way. There are some directors who work even more in that direction, like in Aladdin, Guy doesn't leave his trailer. He directs from afar. Word of God. As a little mic.
Really?
Yep.
Doing it on Skype, is he?
Yeah.
Well, he's on site.
He's not there, really.
He's in the right country. But
why is that? Do you know? Is that just?
I don't know.
Is he a
I
bit
didn't do
shy?
Aladdin. But he's very much a guy who works in the edit.
Right.
And some directors are like that. They know what they want.
Just shoot the crap out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They'll tell their DOP in their first exactly what they want to get.
Yeah.
It's workmanlike. They get it. And then the magic happens in the cutting room.
So before you saw Mr. Scorsese, were you prepped of how to react in front of him?
I was kind of prepped, and then it was completely inappropriate. All of the instructions I was told, you're not allowed to look him in the eye, which is not true. And It was actually a social occasion I got to meet him, and there's not very many of us in Taiwan who were international, and it was his birthday, which was a big deal, and the hotel had very kindly put on a drinks event, and there's probably about as many people as are in this room, and we were just milling around, we were having drinks, just relaxing. We were not expecting him to come along, and chatting to his researcher, his archivist. And yes, he has a researcher and an archivist. Lovely lady, chatting with her about this, that and the other, and nothing important at all. And he walks in and sits down right next to her, and he's probably about as far away as we are right now. I didn't know where to put myself. I thought I'd get fired because I was being inappropriate. I didn't know whether to look him in the eye. And he was...
Bow,
Yes, yes, exactly. But he was funny.
Just talk to her about Michael Pressburger, you'll be all right.
Yes. Well, I met Thelma, who was his editor, Thelma Schoenmaker, who is another amazing person. I love Thelma. If you're looking for female role models in the industry, Thelma is absolutely one of
She
them.
must be cracking on a bit.
Yes, she stepped off the plane from New York after a 15-hour flight from Taiwan. It was about 6 o'clock in the morning. She went for breakfast. She went to work. She worked 12 hours. She got back to the hotel just about the same time as I got back to the hotel after a 12-hour day. It was about 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. And when she went to bed, that was stepping off a plane. I don't think I could do that. And she's 70 something.
78 or whatever she is. Yeah.
She's incredible. She never raises her voice, yet everybody has such respect for her that they know exactly how to set things up and have things done in the very best way that she and Marty can work. So, yeah.
Cool.
That's great.
Yes, he's Marty.
Very good.
Worked on
Well, he was
Goodfellas.
dropping names like Rob, Leo. I thought, oh, you're talking about Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro. That's I'm very much put in my place right now.
Okay, it's great. Tonight is all about working with the talent, working with the above-the-line people. So as two producers, I want to start with you, Neil. How do you start? Do you start with a script? Do you start with an idea of an actor, a writer? Where do films start for you?
I always start with an idea, really, or sometimes a script. Most of the stuff I've done is either we find something that we really like, so then we start collaborating and create a new script.
With a writer on board straight away?
With the original writer, usually, Or very rarely something arrives pretty well formed that we all fall in love with, and then we don't do that much to it. We do a few tweaks and then start kind of trying to figure out where this would work in the marketplace and who the audience might be, and you know, we kind of everything works from the script outwards, really. Yeah.
Is there any money involved in that point?
Yeah.
Some
So
cash
obviously you have to option the script.
Yeah.
So you have to give them a bit of cash.
Yeah.
And I mean, usually, I don't know how everyone else does it, but we have an option/writers agreement. So we pay for the option, which is usually 3 years with a break in it, or 5 years of break if we can get away with that. And then there'll be a writer's fee in there, initial writer's fee, and then it's all stepped through the various principal photographies of being the big payment. I mean, in this country, we don't pay writers as much as in the US. So writers on movies, especially here, because our TV writers get really well paid here, so used to tons of money. Yeah. In fact, our theatre writers do too. So writers here are very, very well paid, usually the successful ones, but they will drop all that on a movie.
Okay. Do you stick to the same writer throughout, script-wise? Have you had to get rid of anybody halfway through?
Yeah, we've had. We've had that.
Company.
I mean, it does happen sometimes. I mean, sometimes you're developing. I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but everything I've worked on, it generally takes about 3 years before you've got something.
Just on script.
On script.
Yeah.
So it generally takes about 3 years, I think, before you've got something really, really polished and great and ready to package up that's good enough to send to really big actors, etc., etc. And you know, sometimes during that process it just doesn't work out, or you disagree, you know, or whatever. And and sometimes the writer will even say, "Look, I've come as far as I can with this.
Yeah,
I've been
you've
working
seen
on
all
it
of
since
them,
I was, 3. And, maybe you need to get a new writer in to freshen things up. I mean, sometimes they suggest it. It's not
But
always...
your agreement is you own that script at that point then, do you?
Well,
Pay the
then-
writer off enough.
Then you have to have a new agreement, don't you?
Yeah.
Because a new writer comes on board. So, yeah, I've worked on projects with been lots of writers, and that gets really complicated. And, I mean, eventually, if everyone falls out, there's an arbitration process you go to with the finished script about who wrote what. But,
What is that called in this country? I know it's the Writers Guild in America, but what is it here?
well, it's the Writers Guild here.
Oh, it is the Writers Guild, same thing.
Yeah. They perform that function, but it very rarely happens because
Right. That's
normally in
usually
this
credit,
country, you're kind of usually working with a sole writer
isn't it? Right.
or a pair,
Yeah.
and if that doesn't work out, they will normally leave the project and you get someone else that cracks on, and then they just, your lawyers will work out the share of credit
You get story by and all
and
that sort of like.
the split of the fee, because that's always an original contract. So
Right.
the original contract we have when we option a script is very much, to be honest with you, banked in the producer's favour.
Right, so it is all sorted in advance a little bit. Cool.
Yeah.
You reading scripts? You getting sent a load of scripts?
Yeah.
Reading through them?
Yeah, all the
Rod,
time, yeah.
Rod, you were saying you're inundated with scripts at the moment.
Yeah, and
Is that how you start with a project? You read it?
no. I mean, from last time, because I paddle in the shallow end of the kids' pool of the area. Previously, we used to start with, if you get like Danny Dyer attached, then you build something around Danny Dyer,
Right.
and you reverse engineer what can Danny do, what are his acting talents, what are his strengths, weaknesses. Then you literally get a writer to work with them, and you create something. If you with E-Locals, the script I'd read 15 years earlier when Dexter was due to make his directorial debut and Fleming was going to produce.
Oh,
And
it's
it was-
before Wild Bill then?
Long
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
and it was a $20 million budget,
Right.
and I read it with my acquisitions hat on, and it was great, and it stuck with me, and it had been optioned and lapsed over the years. And when I started Evolution, I went to the writer, Danny King, who wrote Wild Bill, and said, "What's the situation?" And he said, "Oh, it's free at the moment." So I called up Jason and said, "Look, do you want to do it? If I do it, it won't be 20 million, it will be $500,000. And the time was right for him, and Danny King wasn't precious, and Jason wasn't precious, even though him and Dexter had sort of co-created it with Danny. And it went through loads of changes, and then it was all very amicable. But the scripts that come in, as I said earlier, you get so many. Most of them don't have a synopsis. Most of them, the writers have never done anything before. I was saying to Matt earlier, I had one recently where the guy said the budget was 20 million. He'd never had any script optioned. He wanted to direct it, and he wanted like De Niro or someone in the lead. And you think, and the script was terrible, and he wasn't represented. And there was no. Most scripts don't. They need to come with a package in terms of the director, some key talent, or some key crew, and some money, hopefully. And most of them don't. Most of them are just an idea.
Right.
And you hear about the stories in the 80s where people were selling strap lines for millions in America. Never happened here. And the script is everything, so it has to be right.
Although I will say, like, one of my big things is, I was watching a panel very much like this once, and all these people were saying, oh, you get things with coffee stains on them, and it's written by a nutter, and they're the things we do. It's like American scripts are really slick. They're brilliantly written. They're very, very.
Spell checks.
They're fantastic, yeah. But they're a bit like a hamburger. You know what I mean? It's like you get to the end of it, you think, well, yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
Here, you get some fucking mental kid send you something.
It's an interesting story.
Yeah, with blood all over it and that. But there's something amazing in there, you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, that's much more interesting to
something to work with.
I mean, when we did Club with Jeff Thompson, I mean, Jeff was all over the fucking shop, man. He was like, he was scary, but he had a fantastic voice, and he was funny, and and we just wanted to somehow make it work, and sometimes that, like with Kaz's project, it's like, these amazing projects come along, and it's like they demand to be made, I think.
Right.
And our job is to get on board that, really,
totally.
and make it happen, It's not easy, but we have fantastic voices in this country, and we make, really, really unique kind of movies, and we have unique stories. Americans make the same shit over and over again. Some of it's brilliant, don't get me wrong, I love it, you know, but they're not, don't you think? They're not...
Well, we make a lot of the same shit as well,
Yeah.
to be honest. We react. I mean, how many
Yeah,
Essex
well, I
Boys
do
movies has there been now?
especially,
There's been about 15 Essex
Just a
Boys
few,
movies.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, exactly.
only-
Bonded by Blood 16.
yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I was involved with that one. We'll get on to that. But,
Edit that out, it's all right.
yeah, you don't. Two or three of them are okay, and you know, the rest are just rehashes.
Yeah,
but
sure.
just
Yeah.
going back to something, you never know where the good idea script's going to come from. When I was in acquisitions, I was in Berlin for the film festival, and there's a big building, MGB, which is an old Gestapo building with there's bullet holes in the
Where
side.
the market is.
Where the market is, and outside the market were these crazy guys holding up signs saying Nazis on the moon, Nazis on the moon. And everyone was avoiding these guys
Oh, that was
completely,
a Finnish
and that
guy.
became Iron
Yeah,
Sky.
yeah,
And
yeah.
nobody, and they ended up self-funding, and they unfortunately got ripped off by Revolver. But they got the film made, and they filmed a sequel which they totally owned. But the concept was great, and they were determined to get it done, and they did it themselves in the end. So
They were kind of a collective.
Yeah.
They're a lot more powerful than...
Yeah.
They were
you-
crowdfunded,
that
weren't they?
story
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the one director is rubbish. They're kind of very organised guys
yeah,
who'd done commercials and stuff, and you knew what they were doing. But
Yeah.
you're right. In fact, they sold all the tickets didn't they, to the sales agent screening.
yeah.
So when people from Voltage that turned up, they couldn't get in, which made it even more
Yeah.
desirable. It's
Yeah.
brilliant. It's genius.
Jamie, can I ask you, can you describe your job to us and the difference between all the producer people there are on that credit list? 'Cause
Yes.
You were a production coordinator.
I was a
now
production
you're
coordinator.
manager.
Yes.
Can you describe roughly the difference to us, how it all works in the hierarchy?
In the hierarchy, well, I suppose it's easier to start from the bottom up, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, what was your route through it all?
Yeah, entry level position is making teas and coffees, and that's a production runner or production assistant. And then kind of the next stage up would be that of a production secretary, which sounds like a very old fashioned position, but is essentially these days they produce all the contracts. There's a lot of typing involved.
Right.
So you have your runners, your secretaries, assistant coordinators is the next rung up, and then the coordinators, and that kind of is your core of the production team, and they are all the ones who do all the paperwork. So if you've ever been on a set and you've received a call sheet or a movement order, or you've been sent any kind of paperwork whatsoever, that team of people would have been involved in some way, shape or form, and they would have found the housing, the visas, the travel, insurance, they've got you paid in some way, shape or form. So they are the glue that, and all the kind of dissemination of information, so getting schedules and scripts out to people and all of that kind of stuff, they're involved with all of that. And in charge of that team of people is the coordinator.
Right.
And it's a fairly responsible position in as far as you're the main point of contact for all other departments and everyone else, sort of the outside world. Then the coordinator is the main person that you'd end up talking to, and sending lots of emails in the middle of the night. And then above that, then it's more of a management position. So you've kind of got your production manager or a line producer, sometimes known in the US as a UPM or unit production manager. They call it a different thing because it's a Directors Guild role. So it becomes
Right,
a
okay.
DGA thing at that point. But in the UK, we call it a line producer. And a line, because it has the producer name in the title, the line refers to lines of a budget. So they are the money person. They oversee the day-to-day spend, and they work out whether we're over, we're under,
Is it
okay,
right they deal with the
lighting.
below the line
Yes,
budget?
and that's very
the
much all
producer
below the line.
does the above the line budget?
Yes. Well, the producer is
Is that what the
ultimately...
line means?
Yeah, there's lots of different types of producer as well.
Right.
Yeah.
The way I like to think about it is a producer is someone who's brought something to the table, brought something to the project, be it money, talent, right, and when I say talent, that could be sort of writing talent, directing talent, or actual sort of acting talent, performance. And so you can have a lot of producers, executive producers, who will bring different elements to the table. a lot of people who, maybe someone who has a particular relationship with the director. So, for example, Martin Scorsese always works with the same producer, Emma Tillinger-Koskoff. And so if you want access to Marty, you go through Emma.
You used to work with Graham King before that.
Yes.
Spurs supporter.
Emma used to be his assistant. And Silence actually is a very good example of lots of producers being involved, because it isn't, even though it's fairly big budget, it's an independently financed production, independently financed film. So they had money from more religious circles, because it's a film about Jesuit priests.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Catholic money that came into it.
Yeah, it's a big thing in the States, Facebook.
Yep.
Isn't it, at the moment?
And
Absolutely, yeah, it is.
And they
Big
had a
market.
distribution deal, so there would be people from the studio putting money in and having some sort of producerial oversight on it as well. And they're generally, correct me if I'm wrong, but generally known as executive producers at that point, if they're bringing money or things to the table. And then you have, generally speaking, one main producer who's the one who takes the fall and is probably going to get the most money at the end of it.
Yeah, probably started the project as well.
Yes, and probably started the project at the end of it.
Money?
If there is
Last
money to be
person that
made.
gets paid.
Weirdly,
Yes.
we get the least.
But for example, if you work on a Jerry Bruckheimer film, Jerry is always the producer. Everybody else is an executive producer or an associate producer.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. As a producer, how do you find the acting talent? What's the route to the star, the name, the above the line talent? Is it
I mean, the way we
agents?
always work, to be honest with you, is we use a casting director. So,
Right.
and we have a relationship with Fiona Weir and Alice Searby that we work with over a number of projects.
Right.
Before that, I worked with Dan Hubbard.
Yeah.
I've worked with Shaheen Baig. She's really good too. So, I mean, we have fantastic casting directors here, and they have because they do all these big Hollywood films, they have amazing access to the talent. So,
What stage would you approach them? When the script's nearly done, money's in place? How does it... I know Alan's a piece of string.
yeah, I
Is
mean,
there a
normally, well, I can only speak at the way we work. I mean, normally if we got a script that we think this is really getting there, this is really happening, what we quite often do is we'll arrange a kind of performed reading, and we'll actually bring the casting directors in then. So,
Or like a table read?
yeah,
Right, okay.
and it's a bit cheeky because what we'll quite often do is we've already got a short list and stuff anyway.
Right.
So what we'll think is, oh, they're in town. Because quite often our actors are really good. They'll come and do stuff like that. Even really big stars will. Because,
Really?
they like
They're
to
just trying
flex
it
their
out.
muscles, see what's going on.
Okay.
I mean, you have to chuck them a few quid, buy them a drink and stuff like that, pay their travel, but not
Yeah,
much.
okay.
But you can be a bit cheeky
We do
because
have actors in the house, by the way.
because with the bigger stars, they won't audition, they won't read. It's
Right.
offer only.
Okay.
So you have to take a bit of a gamble in that if someone's available and they're interested in the script sort of thing, it's like you have to offer them scripts. If you're not quite 100% sure if they're right,
Yeah, how does that work?
sometimes that works. But if so, you do a performed reading. I mean, I've had huge stars that do performed readings, and it's a cheeky way of auditioning them without them realising that's what you're doing. You know?
Right, but how locked in are you with that person then, if they love the script and all that? Is it
Well,
just word of mouth? There's
Yeah,
no
I mean,
handshakes,
that's
or
why we do sort of perform readings, because that
Yeah.
then tells you,
that he's like, are they right for the
it
part?
gives you a really good kind of litmus
Yeah.
test of where you are, and
Yeah.
like if it's a comedy, if the jokes are working, if it's a thriller, if it's
Yeah.
where the weak spots are too.
Yeah.
And the other thing about great actors is they give you very different feedback from other people, like readers and
Definitely, yeah.
executives and that. They give you some of it's quite mad, and you think, oh, fuck off, fucking actor, you know. But actually, when you think about it later, you think, actually, that's really interesting, you know,
Yeah.
because they're character driven. So
Yeah, exactly. Understand
Yeah.
the character from the script.
yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, that's what we do. We do everything through the casting directors from the get go. Because
Really? Okay.
yeah, I think if you've got a good relationship with the casting director and you work together really well, it's a collaboration, it's a partnership,
Right.
and you're going to every single speaking part in that film they will cast, really.
Everything. Okay.
Yeah.
How does the money work then? You're paying them up front before you've got the funding for the film?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them will
So that's
do.
from that development.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of them will do a kind of deal whereby for
They do it after,
some
get
money
paid
up
later.
front, they'll
Right.
start working on it.
Yeah.
And then when you get to a certain stage, you then have to do the sort of pre-deal memo, pre-contract thing.
Right. And they're getting paid on as a percentage of budget, or is it a fixed fee, or a bit
Mm,
of everything?
It's sort of a percentage of budget, but it is a fixed fee. So on a lower budget, they'll, you know, get a decent casting director. I mean, I've had casting directors do some quite big stuff for like 10k, which is really cheap.
Right.
Normally they want about 30. On a lower budget stuff, anything
So you
between
do what? A few months
15
work
and
on you?
25 is
What, you
about
get the whole
right.
cast for 30
Yeah,
grand?
yeah, and actually
That's
you
the
get their
work.
office, so you don't
Okay.
just get them, you get their whole backup team, you get everything.
For how long was that? Like a few weeks?
As long as it takes to cast the whole thing. So,
Really? All right.
so you've got the kind of pre-deal,
Yeah.
which gets you to you know, pre-financial closing, more
Yeah.
or less. And then when you're sort of green lit,
Yeah.
then the contract kicks in, and I
Right.
mean they might renegotiate a bit more if it's been a
If it's all good.
bit of a
Was that-
journey,
Yeah, got
a
some
bit of a
work to do.
hassle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's well worth it because, you know, you get access to the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, you get the bigger names. Rod, you sound like you do it the other way around.
Only
You've got the massive Danny
necessity.
Dyer signed
No,
already.
but if you go again, the go-to budget genre in the UK is Essex Boys, gangsters, geezers, etc., etc. And there's almost like a repertory selection of actors that you pick from,
Yeah.
and you know there are people that are you expect to see in these films. Some of them were in Lock, Stock, some of them were in Snatch, some are in Game of Thrones now, and you pick and choose. Some were in The Bill, and you know, but if you the good ones you take with you, and if you're doing a similar movie again, you recast these people. So a lot of that's done yourself through your personal relationships, because obviously once you've done the first film, you've got all their contact details,
Yeah.
and if you can avoid going to the agent. It's easier because often
Danny Dyer
the agent's the gatekeeper, and you can't guarantee that the actor's even going to see your project if it goes to the agent. If you know the agent or if you've got a contact with the agent, then with the actor, then it's best to try and go direct.
Yeah.
With Eat Local, it was we did it out of Fleming's phone. So although we had Lucinda Syson attached as casting director, everyone came from Fleming's phone.
Yeah,
So
of course, yeah.
when Jason Statham turns up and does stunt coordination, and he rocks up in a muddy field in Watford wearing leather moccasins at midnight, and you think, let's find this man some wellies, you know. And Jamie Oliver arranges the catering. You don't get that through. You get that through his relationships and his contacts.
Yeah.
As he says, you get one rub of the lamp when you do
Yes.
those sort of favours.
Yeah.
I'm doing one. I'm putting together a film at the moment. Hopefully, we're shooting in July, and that's going to be in Italy. And I've got Independent attached as a casting director, and we're doing everything through because it's a different type of movie for me. It's female-led action thriller. I'm going for a young British-Spanish actress and a different type of actor connected. So that is we did audition days. We've requested tapes. A lot of Skype calls, and the casting director's been with me now for a year on this project, and the delays are my fault because the funding hasn't completed through,
Right.
and I think we've lost one or two actors now, so I'm probably going to have to pay that casting director a little bit more on top to come back into it, but I'm still doing all the contracts then, even for a fee less than what you mentioned earlier.
Sure, yeah.
But that's just for their services in terms of their relationships with the agents. And when it comes to the contracts, we end up rehashing contracts that we've had from previous ones. So again, it depends on the size of the movie and the size of your support team
Yeah.
and the structure around you.
I was just thinking Danny Dyer, Helena Bonham Carter in the Bonded by Blood
I know.
16.
Danny is a
Appear in costume,
brilliant. He's a brilliant actor, and he's a wonderful, wonderful person. I won't. I know, not here, but there are a lot of people that knock this man. And I only experienced with one film, but I've worked with his daughter on a couple of movies, and she's wonderful, and the family are wonderful. But he knows his stuff. He's really professional.
Yeah.
He knows his stuff, and he does it.
Absolutely.
That was a kind of special market, that wasn't
It was
Do you think
when
that's-
DVD was.
Do you think that's moved on?
Well, the DVD market's pretty much collapsed. It's really hard.
Which
for
was a young male market, really, wasn't it?
It still is, though. I mean, the books and the films and the genre and everything. It is male centric, but it often was the girlfriends and wives in the supermarkets picking up for their husbands, brothers, sons, the films. And that's still there to a certain extent. Rise of the Foot Soldier 3 or 4 or whatever did gangbusters recently, and and that was somehow a prequel with Craig Fairbrass meant to be 10 years younger than what he was on the one from 10 years ago, and now they're going to put Terry Stone back in a wig and maybe do another one with Terry again. So they're Carnaby make them, and they're made for a sensible budget. They're really well done from that point of view, and it targets an audience that are still buying that completely.
Yeah.
So there's not much risk in it.
There's a niche there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Looking after this big star, then you signed up. How do you keep them on board when the timings are going backwards, or the scheduling's going a bit astray?
Yeah, well, that happens all the time. I mean, with the sort of slightly bigger budget projects, what always ends up happening is you lock your dates,
Right.
you're kind of scrabbling around trying to get the last 30% of the budget or whatever it is, and then someone decides, or someone gets, like just happened to us recently, someone gets Terminator, so they drop out. So, and that happens all the time. But what tends to happen is the sort of bigger financial entities, if you like, the people that are essentially greenlighting your film, will have a kind of very short list. And the sales
There's a
agency.
plan B always.
Always, yeah.
C and
They'll
D
give you
and
a
E.
kind of equivalent that they will still do the deal with, because inevitably, because you're working so far ahead,
things are
you know,
gonna
it
move,
takes
aren't
like 12, 16 weeks to close a co-production. You know, it takes forever. So it's like you're working so far ahead, you're kind of 9 months ahead, that by the time you actually get to the shoot,
they? You don't know what's going on.
you don't know what's going on. Someone could be ill, whatever. Anything could happen. So inevitably, you never really all end up with the cast you intended to have.
Right. So this mythical list I heard about, where there's a list of what
There's
they're
a list.
worth,
There is,
sort of exists.
It does exist,
And
yeah.
it just
yeah.
constantly
yeah.
gets moved around.
Yeah.
That happens on big
Yeah.
stuff as
Yeah, I
well.
was going to say, have you experienced that?
Yeah.
People just literally disappearing on you and being
had a
replaced by a
job,
lookalike?
Yeah, and it was supposed to be kind of like not quite a cameo, more of a substantial role, but it was a supporting role.
Right.
Big name actress,
Right.
female, and
obviously can't tell
she
us.
got Oscar nominated and decided that was this project really wasn't her thing.
Yeah.
So she dropped out at a very, very late stage, and there's a short list, and they call around, and we see if that's going to be that person. We actually get to the point where we actually need to shoot with her on that first day, and we don't have an actor at all. So it's a shape. It's a person. It's a shape in the car. That's all we see.
Right.
And then it got recast as a very, very tall man instead.
So you start shooting you over the shoulders and doing
Yes.
the reverses, do you, first?
I
And hope they got the same
on the
haircut.
Kingsman 2, I think Channing Tatum was meant to have a main role, and the production got delayed. He went into another part, and they cast him briefly in the movie, but his character is asleep through most of the film and comes up at the end, and there was a completely different actor playing the role that he was meant to play during the movie. So,
So is the financial worth of that actor that you find an equivalent selling worth?
Yeah,
to keep
because
the budget the same?
on co-productions, certainly, which I do a few of at the moment, the value, your budget basically is completely dependent more or less on your cast,
On that,
unless
yeah.
you've got a superstar director or something.
Yeah.
There's not many of them, there's a handful of them
Yeah.
really. So the way the sales agents work out the value, so basically your money's coming from like 7 different sources or whatever. The people who are putting in the biggest gap,
Yeah.
which are usually a UK company like Ingenious or whatever, what they want to see, say it's a $10 million film, just to keep it simple, and they're putting in 3, that's your gap. They like to see 3 times that in sales, although
Right.
they sometimes will go on 2 and a bit. So they want to see 9 million in sales, so they're putting in their 2 million and they're first out. And they're the people you have to satisfy, because they're essentially greenlighting all your tax credits and
Right, that's where your
regional
cash is coming
finance,
from,
everything
yeah.
else, yeah.
Yeah, hanging on that.
Yeah. So it's always a balancing act,
Okay.
right up until
Yeah.
you close, yeah.
Okay, so once you're all shooting and you've got your star involved, how much smoozing are you doing to keep them happy? Are they pretty good all the time?
Yeah, I mean, they'll rock. I
They'll
mean,
do
they're
the
usually
job.
flying in from somewhere.
Yeah.
You do a couple of days rehearsal if you've got time, or that's agreed, and then they'll get stuck in. Yeah, they're fine.
Once they're shooting, they're locked in then for those weeks.
Yeah.
They're only going to bail before the shoot, not during.
Well,
happens.
It does happen, yeah.
But I mean, if you're saying once that's agreed and they're in,
Yeah, pretty much there's a contractual agreement
yeah,
then.
yeah,
so-
and you have to look after them. I mean, their agents are tough agents. LA agents are not easy to please. You know, I mean, we had one where they insisted on having a swimming pool, a gym, sauna, and something else.
In the trailer?
And we were shooting. We weren't shooting in London. We were shooting outside London, and we found this horrible fucking hotel, but it had moss growing on the swimming pool. But you know,
But it ticked the
the
boxes.
pictures on the website actually look quite good. So they're just like, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Like a carpet run.
Yeah, yeah. So they make you jump through hoops all the time. You know, and I mean, we were putting an actor up once in a. They wanted to stay in an apartment because they run every morning. Didn't want to be in a hotel, and one of the assistants on the shoot had put them up in this lovely apartment, but I happened to know it was next to a homeless alcoholic hostel because I used to be a homeless alcoholic. So, and I said, you can't put her there. So we actually ended up putting her in an apartment that belonged to one of the other producers' parents, which was super gorgeous.
Very nice.
And she was very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Jamie, you got any stories of excessive riders for actors?
Yes.
Without mentioning names?
Yeah. We were told to find a house for 5 or 6 people, and it needed outside space, a pool, etc., and horses. That was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Western you were shooting either.
Yeah, they're very outdoorsy, that lot. That was interesting. I mean, actually, the horses were the easiest bit because we know horse people, so they can put a couple of horses in if you have
The
space.
travelling community.
Yes,
they have several.
exactly.
It's fine if you're an island.
They're always up for a
Yeah.
deal.
Although, is that just written into the contract anyway, that they get a nice place to stay, or it's just taken as granted, surely?
Well,
isn't
it varies. It
level.
often is written into the contract, and on sometimes with the bigger name point people, you rather than say we're going to give you X, Y, and Z, they'll have an allowance, and out of that big lump sum is all their travel, not just for them, but their friends, their family, their assistant, the nanny, the blah-de-blah-de-blah. All of that comes out of that allowance, plus the housing, plus any perks. So if they suddenly decide they want to generously, no, that wouldn't come out of that perk package, actually. I was going to say buy everyone donuts, but probably wouldn't come out of that package. But say they wanted a midnight manicure or something like that, that would come out of the perk package, and production, the company would pay for it, but then it would get billed back to that line of the budget, that above the line perk package. And your private charters and all of that can come out of it as well. I did have to once fly a family, the star being the head of the family, and her kids on a helicopter ride to France for the day and back again in order to be able to get the stamp in the passport for the visa for the kids.
Oh, right, it's just an in and out.
In and out,
Altogether.
but yes, that was quite an expensive in and out trip to France.
Oh, very good. Any questions at this stage about any of what we're chatting about? Chip in if anybody's got any questions. Directors, how do you choose directors when you're on them halfway down the getting the money
Well, I
in?
used to be one, so I'm a nightmare.
Yeah, how does that work?
I'm their worst nightmare. Yeah, I mean, it's actually really good because I was a director. When I've worked with directors, it's actually been really good once we've learnt to trust each other. And
But again, what stage do you bring them in at? Are they coming in at script development stage, or is it?
yeah, I mean, it's so weird with directors. It's like we were chatting about this earlier, weren't we? Like certain levels of the industry, they all have their lists
Right.
of who triggers what. So if you can get one of them, you're well in, you're great.
Right.
Otherwise, they're not really triggering the finance. So quite often, it's quite difficult with the director in that you want, I mean, it really, really does depend on the project. If it's like a heavyweight drama, then you want a director that actors want to work with.
Right. So
Because
yeah.
that
so it keeps
makes
your actors
sense.
happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
If it's a genre project, the director doesn't matter that much, really, does it? With a genre, no one cares about a director on genre projects.
I
Really.
don't know. I think there's a real skill set to pacing and editing and framing and everything for a director. I mean, bizarrely, on We Still Kill the Highway, which came out at the same time as, or we came out a bit earlier than Governors, but Sacha Bennett was director on that. And Sacha's a lovely man. He's the least person you'd ever expect would direct a gangster movie.
Right.
But because we had an older cast, he was wonderful with the actors, and he'd done Outside Bet, which was Bob Hoskins' last movie, and there was an older cast on that as well. So again, it depends, but I think there's a skill set. I will defend genre movies and low budget movies all
No,
day
but what I
long.
mean is, from the finance plan point of view,
Yes.
Just getting it going.
I'm not
the
fortunate enough to have
director's
been.
not triggering your money.
No.
So
Unless
if
it's
you've
a
got a
writer
really,
director.
that's why I would go for a TV director, because they can shoot.
They're a
Like
safe pair of
high-end TV
hands.
directors that work to the big American shows, they shoot
Efficient.
5-6
Yeah.
pages a day.
Yeah, they're quick,
They're
yeah.
really quick. They're really efficient. They're great. Whereas if you go for someone who's done, coming of age, fucking arty, stroking grass films, as I call them,
But
they'll
Yeah.
go off and pontificate. I mean, it's a
57.
nightmare. Yeah, and it's like, get on with it.
with Vendetta, the Danny movie, the director of that, it was a 150 grand movie, but the director of that was spotted from that film and ended up doing a 2-movie WWE Studios deal in the US, and consequently James Nunn out of the UK is now on his 3rd or 4th WWE movie. But these are hard shoots. I think these are 15-day shoots, $1.5–2 million movies, but they're like a production line. Again, it's a skill set. It's a.
But that's what I mean. Those directors that have done loads of that stuff, sometimes they're the best choice for us
Yeah.
because they're efficient. They're used to working really quick.
Yeah, it's a
you know,
factory, isn't it? You're
Yeah,
trying to get it done.
they know how to work quickly.
Yeah.
Okay,
So you choose your weapon accordingly, really. you
yeah,
know.
absolutely. But as you say, it's not part of the finance unless they're a name.
No,
And
unless
it's a
they
different
come
game.
with. I mean, I've worked on projects where a director is already there.
Right.
So
it's a director-led
It's like,
project.
it's either a writer-director team,
Right.
and the director's there, and that's cool because that's what it is. So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
go into that knowing exactly what that's going to be, and that's fine.
Yeah. Can I talk about if things go wrong? How do you get rid of your above-the-line talent, whichever ones they are? Have you ever experienced that? They're
Well-
just screwing up your film.
Yeah, I mean that's why studios do pay or play. So in America they
Right.
do what's called pay or play.
Right. Can
Where-
you describe that to us quickly?
Well, there's kind of two kinds of it. There's kind of the big type of pay or play that kind of Universal does, where
Right.
they want Brad Pitt for September and October
Yeah.
for this movie that's happening next year, so they buy him because obviously the top actors, there's only 12 months in a year. They're all busy. They're getting offered everything.
Yeah.
They want paying.
There's
So
only 7 of
whether
them
it happens or
and
not, so you have to pay them whether the film happens or not.
Right.
There's also another kind of pay or play deal. It's a kind of escrow type thing where you put sort of 30, 20 or 30% of their fee in to kind of get them
Right.
to be attached.
Okay.
And then if the film falls through, you lose that, but you don't have to pay the rest.
Right.
Now, studios do that for that very reason, because if they want to remove an actor, because they've paid them anyway, that's all in the contract.
Right.
Us indie producers in the UK don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
such luxuries, so
Yeah.
so if it goes wrong and you want to get rid of someone,
Yeah. How does that work? Does it happen? It must
Yeah.
happen.
it's not easy. You can
You just don't want to do it.
you
basically.
can give them laxatives,
Get those special photographs.
scare the crap out of them. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's a nightmare. I mean, I've never really had an absolute. I don't know if Rod has an
we
absolute
can't afford
nightmare where
to.
I've had to get
You
rid
just
of
can't
somebody.
do it.
on the lower budget movies, you
just can't do it.
literally can't. They're
Yeah.
not bonded,
Yeah.
and so you have to get the movie done. You've got a set amount of days, and you're not paying the talent a great deal, and the crew are
Yeah.
probably moving on to another job immediately afterwards anyway. So
Yeah.
you have to do it. You have to
Yeah.
finish,
Just have to
and I
make it
guess
work.
it gets fixed in post. I guess is
I mean,
the-
Yes.
I have known producers on a bonded film shoot an actor out with the full knowledge that they're going to get someone else in and reshoot that. That happens sometimes.
Do you just shoot in the way you know
Well,
you
so
can
the Bond
fix
company
it, yeah.
will then
Yeah.
rearrange
Yeah.
the budget so that there's an allowance for that to happen.
Right.
So when they do the pickups, They'll actually bring another actor in and reshoot an
Just
actor.
do
I've
it-
seen that
do those
happen, yeah.
angles.
Well, you had the Kevin
Fix it.
Spacey thing where it was replaced
Yeah.
by Christopher Plummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely, and they did that incredibly
That was
quickly.
really
Yeah,
fast.
weeks, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah, literally. I don't know how
About
they
2
did
months
that.
I
before
don't
it's
know.
it does
I know
happen,
some
don't
people
they?
worked on it. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean,
yeah.
I know people that have seen the original version with Spacey in, and then now they've seen the version with Plummer, and again, it's seamless. what they've
Yeah.
done.
I think there's a lot. I did a lot of face replacement and had a lot of green screen work in the
It
pickups.
didn't come cheap, did it?
It did not. No.
Exactly, yeah.
Threw a
But
lot
like
of money
Rod
into it.
says, on a non-bonded film,
Yeah. You
there's
got
no point doing that. I mean, because all you're going to do is upset people you don't want to upset, and
Yeah.
you might as well just go with it.
You gotta make it
And
work.
then sort it out in the cutting room, really, you know.
Yeah. Just shoot around it, make
Yeah,
it work.
yeah.
You had an experience, Jamie, of
No, we've never
nothing
had to.
crazy meltdown?
Well, the only time we did have to get rid of someone, and she was quite a young someone, they rewrote the script in the middle while we were still shooting, whereby the part was younger than the part she would play. So it was like sort of a flashback sequence, and instead of being a teenager, they wanted to see the character much younger as a sort of 12, 13-year-old,
Right.
as opposed to an 18-year-old. So that part got cut altogether, and she had to go home, and it was explained from a creative point of view that we all knew what the real reason was.
Right. Do you all get told? Is it like a...
Well,
you are working as a team. You all,
she'd already flown over to the UK.
was there like a general... treated like it's a company, you all get an email saying so-and-so's going now?
Oh,
or
no, no,
you'll,
no.
You just hear
It's,
from...
it's handled a little bit more delicately.
Right,
It's
a little
just
bit,
quietly
yeah.
sent home. And,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
You said about scripts being rewritten. How often is a script actually finished when you're shooting?
Oh, I
Are
see.
they ever
Once,
finished?
well, I mean, I see it changed daily almost.
There is a writer on set.
Often a writer on set or not on set and just there in the background writing away.
How are they treated these days? Have they been looked after
Really
a little
depends
bit
on the
better than they used to
writer.
be? Really?
Yeah.
Some of them just there for the...
If
sake
they're a
of
big name writer, then, you know.
But I actually
they're not
like having the writer on set. I think that's a
You
good
should,
thing
yeah.
because sometimes on a shoot, things don't go quite according to plan, and you've got to,
Yeah.
or you might be up against time.
Yeah.
So you think to yourself, right, we're not going to get this 2-day thing
Yeah.
done. There's no way we're going to shoot all that out,
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
must get to this other thing.
Yeah.
So having the writer there is fantastic because you can go off into a corner or lunch and think,
Yeah.
right,
Shorten
Yeah.
it down a bit, yeah.
you think, can we cut this?
Yeah.
Which you might not be able to, but
Mm.
quite often you can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the nature of shooting. Shit happens, you know.
Yeah, yeah, you've got to
And if you haven't got the writer there, it's actually more of a problem.
Yeah,
I'd
you
love
could
to have
screw
the
up
writer
completely,
there.
can't you?
Yeah.
End up
And it really
missing
helps for
something
the
out.
writer to see the location so they know what they're writing
Yeah,
for as well.
absolutely, yeah.
Because otherwise it's just in the abstract.
Yeah, I don't understand these people that don't have the writer anywhere near the shoot. It's insane. It doesn't make sense.
I think a lot of directors might find it threatening.
Yeah, but they're
Yeah,
useful.
no, I know.
And the
I
other
know.
thing is actors, like if you're directing,
Yeah.
actors drive you fucking mad,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they want to change
So you
it.
go, oh, go and speak to the writer. It's a great way of like getting rid of them.
Yeah, you do go over there.
He wrote it.
Okay,
Go and ask him.
I've flown writers around the world just so that they could be close by, but at some point they can't be on set all the time. You have to send them to an
I
office
know,
so they
yeah,
can actually
yeah,
write.
Exactly, yeah. And they might be going to some other massive job anyway.
On Persia, on Prince of Persia, they hadn't written the final fight sequence when we were midway through. So the writers were very important at that point. We sort of shut them away in the room, work out what you're doing so we can actually build it.
See what goes on? We don't do that, do we? We're prepped. We have it all sorted.
They had it written, they just didn't like what they'd written.
These big boys, they're the ones that
Wing
do it,
it.
do they?
Yeah.
Any questions before we wrap up? Anybody want to chip in? Any actors at the back want to disagree? You're happy? I think that's probably it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yep.
a question. The relationship between, so when, I'm not talking about big A-listers like Brad Pitt or something, but let's say an actor who has somewhat a name to him or her, known to British TV audiences. What's the relationship between budget and getting such an actor in, or what comes first? And yeah, I don't know, like how do you negotiate that of getting someone who has a bit of a name and getting a certain budget?
It comes down to scales of economy and scales of budget, but from personal experience, if you can't afford names, you get faces. Now, and if sometimes if you get enough faces, you hope that it makes up for the fact that you haven't got a name. but with the
what exactly it means.
well, if you go, oh, that guy was in Game of Thrones, that guy was in The Bill. Oh, I know his name, but you don't have a star lead, but you end up creating an ensemble. However, you'd be surprised if actors like to act. Actors are jobbing actors, and day rates are quite reasonable sometimes and quite affordable for the smaller productions. And you get someone in for one day. On a different scale, Bruce Willis gets $2 million used to get $2 million for 3 days, and they drop him into a film, and the film will be and Bruce Willis, but it'll be his face on the front. But they know by paying him that $2 million, they get that much more in sales just by having him attached. He's not the lead actor. They give him a monologue, which they'll run across the trailer. So it sounds like he's in the whole movie, but he's barely in the movie. But on the lower films, generally, it comes down to relationships. And if you get someone you know and you trust and they trust you, you get them in for a couple of days, and hopefully it helps. But we paid, I shouldn't say this on camera, but what we paid on the last film for the actors was they were doing as a personal favour for the director. And I said before, you can't rub that lamp twice, you can only do it once. And if you want to use them again, it's only fair that you pay them their going rate if you can afford it, or you pay a proportional amount towards your budget that you think that you can afford. But you can't ask for those one-off favours. Just do it for me. Just come in and do it. We had Statham wandering around. We were filming him for behind the scenes, and I was saying to Fleming, "Go on, get him in front of the camera. If we had him in front of the camera for 5 minutes, but we would never get that past his manager." Because his manager will want his fee, and then there has to be a fee for Statham, and he was doing it as a favour. So you have to tread carefully. But again, yeah, it just comes down to the size of your movie, the size of your budget, and what you could afford, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if I was doing a lower budget film here, normally you'd have an agreement with Equity. So like they have like capped rates you have to pay, and normally they'll let you have about 3 or 4 stars that you can contract, and everyone else will be on equity scale, which is depending on what your budget is. So under $1 million, it's something.
You can do equity minimum. Equity minimum is 180 a day, I think.
So everyone's basically on scale. So your casting director will then, every speaking part, will go for the biggest, most well-known actor. Oh, sometimes not. Sometimes it's the best actor, because that's what you need, because that line requires someone who's really good, even if it's one line, you know. So, I mean, you cut your cloth accordingly. So if you're on a scaled job, which most films are here, to be honest with you, and apart from the really big ones, which are Hollywood films anyway, everyone gets paid the same. So
Hollywood films, some of the bit parts play equity minimums
Yeah.
as well.
Do they?
Yeah. The scale is higher, but it is an equity minimum, yeah.
yeah.
A big
So-
problem is if you're doing equity as well, you do pack equity, you have to put money in escrow. So you have to have the salary spare to go in a bank account. You then have to pay people, and then you have to wait for 3 months after the end of the production to get your money back. So if you're counting every penny on a smaller budget
Your
movie,
cash flow.
you don't have 2 lots of salary fund available to you. You only have one. So that's why so few films are equity, lower budget are equity films.
Yeah,
Afford
yeah.
it.
How much do executive producers have an influence then on that? If they, for
Executive
example-
producers.
Yeah, executive producers. If they, for example, invested like $2 million or whatever, they say, oh, this name is not big enough. We need someone bigger than that.
It depends, but again, only from experience on the lower level ones, a lot of executive producers end up being in the movie, and that's why they put the money in the first place, or their cash flow, the tax credit, and they will get a small part, and they'll be named as executive producer, and they'll be in the cast, and there's 1 or 2 regular British investors that do that are in films,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it happens in the US as well. But
Yeah, and we've done that too. You're absolutely right. The really crap actor in a film is someone who's put money in.
So we need to write a really tiny role that's about it.
I was going to ask about joint actors and casting and so on. Given the fact that there is the prevalence of, shall I say, celebrity culture and Love Island, that kind of thing. If you've got someone who wins Love Island, shall we say, would you consider? I mean, is it considered? Oh, we can't act, but we'll have him in it because he's a face and a name, as it were.
Yeah.
It may help us.
we had Kirk Norcross in a small part in Bonded by Blood 2.
Yeah.
And I actually thought he's very charismatic and he could be a good actor. It's not. I don't think that life's for him. He's doing something else now. But there's an Italian model that I'm considering for a small part in the next movie that has 7 million Instagram followers, and and that makes a big difference. I mean, sorry, but you know the importance of social media, and it's so important. Yeah, and the cameo. Yeah. I mean, but that's how you promote it. You promote it by you get these people because they have a built-in audience. But again, if you've got them in for too long, it can kill that scene and kill that film.
If you're in bed with a distributor, which Rod used to be, they're the ones who put pressure on you to do that kind of thing. I mean, we wouldn't really do that, to be honest with you, because we're just trying to get the best people to make the film. But absolutely, I mean, if you've got a distribution partner on board, there's always a lot of pressure to get this, isn't there? I mean, that's the way it works.
It's a face on the
really.
box that gives it pick up ability.
Yeah,
That's the word.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So you do get that. People say, "Why, can you, find something for this person that's got 58 billion YouTube followers or something?" That's good. But I mean, cause these days it's so competitive. Like, I mean, when I started in this business, it used to be about 5 films a week released. What is it now, Rod? About 18?
I'm
Something ridiculous. So I mean, it's so competitive now.
Yeah.
It's so noisy, as the TV people like to call it. To get any kind of traction going, you need to use everything you possibly can. So, I mean, and distributors are great at that. You have to listen to them. They're fantastic. Sounds a bit crass sometimes, but they kind of know what they're doing. Yeah. I mean, and their job's on the line. They're trying to sell this thing.
I mean, as a distributor, we pretty much changed every single film title without fail because, and I hate to say it, but a lot of writers don't know how to write or to come up with a film title. They can come up with a wonderful story, but in terms of what the difference is, there was a film, Tokarev, which was a Nicolas Cage movie, and Tokarev is a specific Russian gun. And we were trying to change the title, and then the Americans got permission to, and it was called Rage. So the poster just said Cage Rage, and that was the poster, and that did the job for them. But we had to stick with Tokarev, and nobody understood the title of the movie.
And Cage is always in a rage.
Yeah, he's always in a rage.
That's what he's known for.
He owes money. That's right.
Any last questions before we go off to drink beer? As usual. All good. Mr. Dyer.
It sounds obviously producers talk about markets and commerciality. Is there still room to make artistic films?
Of course, yeah. I mean, we make more of them here than any other territory, I think, to be honest with you. I mean, I was involved in something recently where we had a slam dunk genre film we were going to do with this American company, which is owned by an oligarch. And his wife had now taken over the kind of European end and ended up doing a French film with Keira Knightley because she wants just to do awards films. Because, I mean, to be honest with you, the independent film industry in this country and America, if you trace the money back, you end up with a billionaire. It's a plaything for rich people. It's not really a business. Hollywood is a business, proper business, and it works as a sausage factory would, or any other kind of business. The independent film industry isn't. It's mad, it's weird, it obeys completely weird rules. And usually, if you look at who owns what, it's the playground of billionaires.
Annapurna's owned by a millionaire.
Annapurna.
Yeah, Black Bear Pictures.
STX is owned by
STX,
the Hyatt girl, Usually the kids of billionaires are the ones who are the biggest film producers in the world and make great films, like Bold Films is a friend of Putin's, a shipping billionaire.
Imitation Game was made by a billionaire, or son of.
I mean, they all are.
I'm cynical.
Nothing changes the Renaissance. You have to paint the rich person's dog because that's how you earn a living. That's what we do.
Yeah, I wouldn't do an art film if you paid me because I can't see a route back to profit. It's a flight of fancy, and if it's so difficult, and I have to, because I came from distribution and acquisitions, when I acquired a film, I had to know the audience, I had to know comparable titles, sales numbers, and you reverse engineer it. You know this genre, this work. Art films, that's why there's no low budget independent British comedies, because they don't work. They never work. No, but they don't even work here. Unless everyone goes, oh, but what about Shaun of the Dead, but it was based on a Channel 4
But
sitcom
Ealing,
TV series.
Ealing was...
Yeah, but they just don't work. So if somebody came to me
No,
with
they did work.
no, but that was studio-
Ealing was
yeah, but
Carry On was the biggest film franchise in the
but
UK.
50 years ago,
Yeah,
60 years ago.
Yeah, I know,
And-
but you know,
But if somebody says what they
you
want to see a
can't just
Laurel,
blanket say they don't work.
well,
they
don't
did work
no,
at one
no,
point
for the last 20
for a mass
years,
audience.
For the last 20
yeah,
years.
yeah.
And art films, there are literally
Maybe you're
hundreds
just
and
doing them
hundreds.
wrong.
Well, I don't know. Art films, by their very nature, are niche. It's a niche market.
Yeah.
And everyone says, "Oh, but it's they spend their money. They go and there's the everyman cinemas and people. It's so hard to get your film into the cinema." and
Annapurna
it's
that you
profitable
mentioned,
anyway.
they make art movies, but on a Hollywood
Yeah,
scale.
well, it's different.
I mean, she makes art house
But
movies.
if
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
theatrical,
Zero
everything
Dark Thirty
changes.
and-
It's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah.
If you're not theatrical and you don't have the names, you don't have the finance, you can't do the full cinema thing,
Yeah.
your film will fail.
Exactly.
Your film will fail.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, what Annapurna do would never get made if it wasn't backed by Megan Ellison,
Yes.
who's the daughter of the microchip guy.
Yeah,
or,
was
I don't know,
tech,
some billionaire.
yes,
Yeah. But she works with David O. Russell. She works with all these
Yes.
authors. They make fantastic films, like
Jessica
Oscar-winning
Chastain,
films.
yeah,
you know.
Zero
But
Dark
they're kind of
30,
art house
Mrs.
films,
Lowe,
really.
yeah.
But they're so well distributed because she has a deal with Film Nation or whoever it
Yeah,
is.
she's got a
So-
first look deal.
And they're
hasn't she?
always awards, you know, that she launches them at festivals, they're well planned, well released. But that's a whole different market, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah, I mean, it's a thin line. If you look at Slumdog Millionaire, it was a week away from being a direct-to-DVD title. And at the last minute, Fox Searchlight stepped in, I think, and it blew up. But that could have easily been a
Yeah.
massive failure.
Yeah.
And
Full Monty, that was another
Yeah,
Fox
yeah.
pickup.
I mean,
That was going nowhere.
No.
That was going off the cliff.
And
that
there's been a
film.
number of films, British films, that if you step outside the comfortable budget level of a low-budget British independent movie, and let's say you go up to $1 million or $1.5 million or $2 million, you're in really dodgy territory.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's been a number of reasonable ensemble films that have just crashed and failed. Even if they've been, there was one recently that says, from the studio that brought you the Full Monty,
Yeah.
and the producers had nothing to do with it, and the film was a similar sort of genre movie.
Right.
I think it went out on 250, 300 screens, and I think the opening weekend was £70,000. And you think,
That's why Working Title put Four Weddings in America first,
yeah.
because we're too scared to release it in the UK in
Yeah.
case it died a death.
I mean, even the King's Speech, no British distributor was willing to take the risk. It ended up being a joint venture between Lionsgate and Studio Canal, because neither of them were willing to risk it.
Yeah.
You know.
It was American owned.
Well, Weinstein were part of the production team. But it'd
He
been,
bought American rights.
yeah.
So he came in quite late, didn't he, Ron?
Cass, you wanted to chip in?
Yeah, I'm independent. If cinemas are loss leader and DVD's where you get the money from, and the industry's basically done away with DVD.
It's about 50% at the moment. Digital revenue on home end, digital and DVD, is still about 50-50. But
They're trying to get rid of DVD.
supermarkets only want studio content now.
You know, like records got rid of.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone.
Well, the market out there for all the films, all the gangster films,
Yeah.
and everything, is always there. Right.
Yeah.
It's like all the Facebook audience. The
Yeah.
industry's trying to do away
Yeah,
with DVD.
and they probably will.
Well,
Yeah.
it's going to smash.
It will kill it.
I mean, they've been doing it in the last few years, so what's the situation now?
I,
Because people ask me to virtually say DVD's finished.
well, it's not dead. I mean, it's certainly not dead. The numbers are, and as an example, and they're all slightly old numbers, but We Still Kill came out Christmas Eve. We Still Kill came out Christmas Eve, and we did 21,000 first week, and it was a split weekend because of the Christmas thing. And I think your number was very similar on Governors. 5 years later, the sequel comes out and does 4,500 week one. And that was still the biggest non-theatrical release that week. Jump forward another year, 2 years, a good number at the moment is 2K week one, which isn't enough. It's not enough revenue. Digital VOD never picked up the shortfall on the physical drop-off units. Piracy is, I mean, I spend
It's 'cause it's free,
$1,000 a
Kaz.
month paying somebody to take down illegal sites.
Yeah.
So within the first week of Eat Local being out in Germany, there's 3,000 illegal sites up, screaming. So people go home, get the DVD, and for some reason upload it to YouTube immediately. And the minute it's online, you can't sell it to any other territory. They go, it's pirated.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is. For low budget genre commercial people, there'll always be money for people that want to do art films because there's no expectation on return on investment, I don't think. But people that want to invest in commercial genre films do it for profit because it's meant to be a business and that's how it should be.
Yeah, DVD was a real,
Yeah.
you know, absolute blip.
Yeah. I mean, the Britfilms
It's a
used to sell
high
in Germany.
watermark, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, the DVD is. I mean, VOD is not catching up.
No.
Although something like Rise of the Foot Soldier, that will have done well on Filmflex. That will have done well on certain things. But don't
It
forget,
was a flop on the cinema.
but that's because you can go on your computer and just get it for free.
Yeah.
But then you get the right football factory where it was pirated.
Yeah, but Nick Love encouraged that.
But that was at the height of the DVD. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's who it is, okay.
Yeah, because that thing with
It's a generation.
that thing he did with
Yeah.
the Chinese guys that go around the pub.
Oh, yeah.
There's a market out
Where
there
he's,
for DVD.
he's selling it
Yeah.
himself. When he,
That is self-distribution, isn't it?
Do the download.
Yeah.
The older generation don't get the download. They still want the physical DVD.
I know.
And in books, you know, my background's books,
Yeah.
and it's great now. They're all coming back, but it moved me into films.
Yeah.
Because I was a publishing it. You know, I was publishing the old-fashioned books. I tried to keep up with paperback. As soon as I went to e-books, I ain't got the. I want the generation that do
No.
it. And I went out. And that's what
Yeah.
I switched
You,
to films.
you got kids now
I
that
see it now in films with a DVD. That's what scares me.
kids have got Netflix and they've got Amazon and they've got all these streaming things. You actually, in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, you give them a DVD, they won't know what it is.
yeah.
And that's the scary thing.
Most of the machines in this building won't play them.
The worst thing, you can't, if you've got a
Yeah.
MacBook Air, you
Can't
can't.
play 'em.
If you've got an Xbox or a PlayStation 4, you can put it in. But kids don't know what to do with it.
Won't have a
It's
player
like showing them an old-fashioned phone. They wouldn't even know what it is today.
Then we're living in an audience because then we're losing a complete generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The film's about marketing, about audience,
Yeah.
and we're wiping out the 70s and 80s generation who
Yeah.
want the DVD.
I know, but I think I feel we're at a point now where there's so much content. You can either go out and have a social life, or you can stay in and watch all the Netflix, Amazon, whatever shows you need to be catching up on. And there's literally so much that you're meant to be watching. I think there's less time for people to go out and buy a DVD and watch it now. But how, as an independent, do you make a living and monetize that? That's a really big question, and I don't know is the honest answer.
But there are weird things like the Northern Soul film, which had a terrible release strategy, but because of the demand, that kind of grew in cinemas.
But again, that's giving people what they want.
Because
the industry
people were bussing around to see it.
The audience always wanted that film.
That's what I
You
mean.
know, it happens in music.
So
Yeah.
How many times do we hear...
cinemas is really where the audience are and go. And if they want a film, it'll go there. I mean, that's why recent films like, especially in the horror genre and things like Get Out and that, have had massive audiences. And a lot of the stuff that Blumhouse do in that, you know, what they're doing are huge audience-pleasing films because they figured out this is how to do it. And, you know, you've got to do it
But
theatrically.
they're still backed by a studio, and
Well, they weren't originally,
no,
but they are now.
The argument now is if you've got an independent movie and if you manage to get it, so, okay, if you've got a film and you've managed to finance it and you've completed it and you funded it, but you've not got a distributor yet. If it's finished, you're on the back foot. The distributor will beat you down and beat you down. We'll do a distribution deal, cost off the top, 50-50 split. And you go, oh, okay. And then you need to check where they're recouping the 50% from and who's being ripped off. But they will put a marketing campaign behind it. If you end up having to self-distribute, it's the hardest thing in the world, and every cost line will kill you down the line. And if you get into the cinema, you'll get bumped out by Avengers Infinity War because they want to show it back to back all day long, and you'll suddenly your main weekend shows have been cancelled at your cinema, and you're only there for 1 week, so you won't make the second week. Someone needs to create a way of actually having a model
But that's
is-
because we're dominated by the US.
yeah.
Because we speak English. That's our problem. If we didn't speak English, we'd have a thriving independent film
It would be
community.
French.
Yeah.
Just copy American Anthem.
That's why France's cinema is so
cinema.
successful, yeah, because they're not dominated by Hollywood, you know. I mean, in France, you can go and see a movie at 8 o'clock in the morning.
But there's quotas to protect French movies in
Yes.
France as well.
And their TV shit,
Yeah.
so, you know.
Bet2 did try, they recently tried to get the government to get a quota, the same as the French. The government doesn't do quotas, apparently.
Well,
I mean,
not in film, at least.
I mean, you can never quite understand how tiny we are in the global film industry in the UK. We really are a cottage industry. I mean, LA is super powerful, you know.
But no films are made in LA.
No.
But they
They're
run
made
everything.
here,
They're made
with
here.
American money, but they're not made in LA.
I mean, the government here
Yes,
would
our
rather
taxpayers.
look after the Americans and give them tax break. I mean, our studios are full of Americans making films,
Yeah.
all getting our tax money.
From the outside, it looks very
You know, our
successful.
government would rather service Americans than us. They don't care
Yeah,
about
but
us.
California has one of the worst tax breaks for films in the world,
Yes.
which is why no films are made there.
They're made in Atlanta
Yeah,
or
yeah.
Pittsburgh
Georgia
or something.
or-
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, shoot the government.
Yeah.
Kill them now.
They do keep some people in business.
I mean, like with the internet, and I mean, I've got friends who they never buy DVD. It's gone. It's finished. They have you get a hard drive, 50 quid, and fill it with films.
Yeah, but then again, they still, and this is my bugbear, and I've come to blows with people who talk about what they call coding machines. Where, oh, it's on there. I just bought it. I said, "No, you know you haven't paid for it. You know you haven't paid for it.
The culture's different.
I know, but there was a really bad advert. You wouldn't steal a car. You
Yeah,
wouldn't
it's-
do
Yeah.
awful advert. But people openly, because they see it as a victimless crime, and on the independent movies,
It's not
people
business.
crew don't get paid. Subsequent movies don't get made. Investors back out and never come back into movies again because they've not paid. And it's inherent. And I don't know how we change that piracy thing, but it's all going to go back to that. If small movies like mine are being pirated, studio movies
Oh, God,
are even worse.
I don't think it's cultural. They don't. You can't. You have to find a way like Netflix or something to actually.
But Netflix only have a finite amount of space. They have all these algorithms that tell you what movies work for them, what don't work for them, and they pay, if you're lucky to get on there, they pay you in instalments over a 2-year period. And you can't. That's why people have got bills to pay and mortgages to pay and debts to pay back when they made the movie.
I mean, I think what Kaz is saying is absolutely right, and there's a massive demand here for certain kinds of films, but because of the decline of DVD and the monopoly of the cinema ownership by American companies, we're not punching above, we're not even punching our weight.
Well, the last survivor of the
We're
DVD
punching
market.
way below our weight, and we need to change that somehow. We need to stop this, you know, bowing down and sucking America's cock, which is what we're doing, you know, which we've always done, really, to be honest with you.
Speak for yourself.
You know, I mean, we're like a little state of it. We're like Alaska. We're a little state of America that is completely. I mean, look at our government. They're dominated by America. They do whatever they're told to do, and we're the same in business. You know, we're completely dominated by America. We're a little state that they don't give a shit about. They don't even know where we are. You know, getting America to the point where the UK is a point of China.
Okay, I think we're drifting into the pub conversation now. You can feel
True though,
a
isn't it?
round in the glass house to finish this conversation off. Unless there's any real burning questions, you can obviously talk after. So just say thank you to our panel this
Thank you.
evening. That's really good.